This is the Cool Meanderings with Dr. Germ G podcast. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Cool Meanderings with Dr. Germ G. I'm your host, Dr. Germ G. I'm still an aspiring writer, lover of sports, education, culture, food, TV. I love it all, man. Well, I mentioned earlier in the previous podcast that I had a few things in my mind, and I think this might be the perfect or maybe ideal time to just share a little bit about this year's presidential election. See, part of my background is in political science, and really I don't do anything professionally with that part of my educational background or even professional background at this point. I'm just a fan of political science, political history, and politics, quite frankly. And I have to say right now, I don't know, I'm a little perplexed by the current situation. When I say situation, I mean the national election, the presidential election for the 47th presidency of the Republic of the United States of America. That could be, will likely be won by either the Republican candidate, the 45th president, Donald J. Trump, or the Democratic candidate, who is currently the vice president, Kamala Harris. So, now, the way I see it, this, in my mind, it feels, because, we're all talking about vibes and feelings with this election. And if I want to stick with that vernacular, this certainly feels like a lose-lose election. And let me tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. I've got 6 reasons. And I've broken them down equitably between the two candidates. 3 for each as to why this is a miserable election. I think I'm going to start with the easy ones. The easy ones are 3 reasons why this election sucks. And why and I don't think it's that difficult. We'll start with the challenger. Well, I mean, it's weird because they're both incumbents. They both have been in office, but we'll start with the challenger, who is the former president, Donald J. Trump. 3 reasons why it really is a terrible losing situation. Well, the first one is, well, if you go back to 2015, Trump Tower, that campaign, the whole 2016 campaign that began in the summer of 2015, that to me, that whole experience alone, in my mind, is reason enough for all of us to be losers in this situation, whether you voted for Donald Trump or not. That he was allowed to have that campaign and to create this army, this movement of people that see the world in a very different lens, and a world where truth is relative. You could argue that, well, that probably applies to people across the spectrum, especially in the DC area. Truth is often relative, yes, but they take it to a whole other level. I'm talking about the MAGA people. They take it to a whole other level. They just do. And Trump is responsible for that. And so is Obama. Barack Obama. The 44th president. The sitting president when the MAGA movement really took off. I think he has some blame for that too. But yes, that campaign from start to finish, when the unfathomable happened and Donald J. Trump became the 45th president of the United States, beating the so-called inevitable candidate, Hillary Rodham Clinton. But it happened. Somehow it happened. I'm still befuddled as to how it happened, but it happened. And that to me, and every little nook and cranny of activity that took place from the time he came down that escalator to the very end on election night. Actually, let's take it past election night to his inauguration. That is by far my number one reason why we are all losers. My number two reason: the presidential administration itself of Donald J. Trump. That is my number two reason why we are losers. Okay? That is my reason. You have to excuse my little alarm there. I'm in the fantasy league and things aren't going well. I get chimes from time to time from competitors talking smack. But let me get back to my soliloquy. So, the number two reason why we are all losers is because we've lived through 4 years of Trump as president. We've lived through it. Just having lived through 4 years of Donald Trump as president of the free world, that alone, just sit down and let that marinate in your mind. Donald Trump was in charge of the country, the military, everything. Donald Trump had his fat, stubby fingers on the nuclear codes for 4 long years. With Donald Trump, yes, we didn't have military conflict, but we had war at home. All kinds of wars. And then the ultimate war, the war against our immune systems. Of course, he blamed China, but we were here to witness it all. And witness press conference after press conference of endless pearls of wisdom from the great commander-in-chief on what to do if you should be struck by the COVID, or as he called it, the China virus. We'll just call it COVID and keep the racism out of it. Did I mention that racism was a big part of his whole campaign and administration? Maybe I didn't, but yeah. Just a disclaimer there. There was a lot of racism going on. Anyway, so, yes, we were struck by COVID here in America. It was a terrible time. And then, of course, the other war, the war over ideology, over race, reached its crescendo as the weather warmed and began to swelter between May and June. We all know what happened, no need to repeat it. But basically, we lived through it. And to think that possibly, potentially, there could be a return to that, just the thought of it alone is a horrible scenario. And the third reason why we are losers in this election is because, well, he's still around. Somehow he managed to deflect any other potential contender in his party. Somehow he won primary after primary after primary and became even more popular once he was convicted. How is this possible? And clearly has lost at least a few scruples. He is not that far down the road as the current president, Joseph R. Biden, but he's not that far behind. It's clear. He is not as spry as he was in 2015, 2016. Oh no. He's slowly creeping up that hill. The hill of no return. But potentially, there could be one more stop on Pennsylvania Avenue for Mr. Trump. After all of this, we are on the brink of yet another Trump presidency. I don't think I have to mention the endless amount of just all the isms, the vitriol, the hatred, the misogyny, you name it, they are a caravan of a different kind of diversity, very nasty kind of diversity. I almost liken it to the Dark Avengers. Maybe they are that. Maybe that's what we're living in. We're living in a time of real Dark Avengers. Anyway, so that was easy. So those are my 3 reasons, and I really didn't even bother to elaborate because I don't think elaboration is necessary. I think we are at that point in time in our society that it's quite transparent. It is abundantly clear what we're getting with Donald Trump. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's abundantly clear. There can be no doubt. I don't need to mention the crazy rally in Madison Square Garden or anything else. Listen, I don't have to go beyond 2016 to have any kind of conversation that highlights the concerns of a Trump presidency. We can end it there, okay? We'll end it there. Obviously, the story doesn't end there. But for me, I don't think it's necessary to go any further. Okay. So then, that's the easy part. So then, wait a minute. What about the other 3 reasons why this is a losing situation? Surely you're not telling us, Dr. Germ G, do you have a problem with Kamala? I mean, you've pronounced her name correctly. You're not calling her Kamala or Camila or Kamala. You're calling her by her appropriate name, Kamala Harris. A beautiful name for a lovely woman who could very well become the next president of the United States, the first female president to lead this great nation. It could very well happen. In fact, I think it might actually happen. And yet, it is also a losing situation for us all. Why? Why, Dr. Sherm G? Well, let me tell you. 3 reasons why I think a President Harris is also a losing situation. Well, for one, a President Harris will likely inherit gridlock. A Republican-controlled Congress, both chambers, who will bitterly oppose any little thing Miss Harris wants to do. She will be sitting in gridlock until she does a tap dance of collaboration, accommodation, and basically sell off whatever she promised to her constituents to get something passed. She'll have to play eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Which of these bills is most important to me that could, if not save us from another tidal wave in 2 years, at least spare me the opportunity to competitively run for re-election in 2028. That's where we're at. I don't see any compromise from the red people. I think if their man loses, they will not be in the mood to compromise with Ms. Harris. Her presidency is basically, effectively, DOA, dead on arrival. I mean, unless she is as duplicitous as some people believe, or pragmatic. Let's not call her duplicitous. Let's just say pragmatic. If she is as pragmatic as she, I think herself would like to believe she is. If she is that pragmatic, then perhaps something can get done. But it will come at the expense of all the political capital, all the faith, all the vibes that have gone hyperactively into her campaign. And then what? Well, I don't think the inconvenient alliances that she's formed with Trump-hating Republicans will save her. I think it will make her walk the plank in 2027 to either run and bow her head in shame and say, I'm not going to run for re-election, or to basically get pummeled at the polls in 2028. So, look, how can I be so negative? Well, I think the political climate suggests that this is the reality. This is the reality. It's a feast or famine situation. And I think for someone like Kamala, who has, she's gotten to this point because she has good political chops in terms of her own survival. But does she have what it takes to lead in a situation where that is very divisive, and that's putting it lightly, and quite frankly, at a time where her constituents may not be in such a mood to compromise? I mean, they're willing to compromise to make sure Trump doesn't get back in, but after that, all bets are off. I think she's one and done, and that's not a good thing. Not only is she one and done, but she's not getting a lot done. And I don't think that's good for anybody. So what's my second reason? Well, my second reason is that a Kamala Harris presidency is going to unearth all of those ugly isms that I briefly mentioned earlier. We are indeed going to see a new America where the bitterness will ripen, bear its ugly fruit. There'll be lots of hate to go around for reasons that are in some ways inexplicable, but for other reasons, well, it would depend on the constituency. There's going to be a lot of bitterness going around. And some of that, I don't know if it's going to turn violent, as some might like to sensationalize, but I think it's going to further divide our society and create a populace that is a further deepening of morass, or malaise, as Mr. Jimmy Carter used to describe the situation back in 1979 when you had to get gas every other day. I think that's where we're heading. I'm not saying that Kamala is going to be the next Jimmy Carter, but I do think that we are headed for some divisive times. And I think that it is going to make us look a little weak, unfortunately. I think some folks will look at our situation and rub their hands and say, the possibilities. The public was so easily manipulated into having these two candidates. And now their president is a lame duck from day one. An easy target to blame for everything. And of course, we all know that the double standard will be in full effect. There will be no grace from Ms. Kamala. She will be so unfairly judged, put to standards that are just impossible for any human being to reach, let alone, someone that is going to be so heavily scrutinized. So, excuse me. I just think that it truly is a lose-lose situation for the potentially next president, the future president, I think, of the United States. I do think she's going to win. I'm not thrilled about it, but I think she has just enough to send Mr. Trump away. Now, so these are two reasons. And some may say, well, maybe you need to be a little bit more positive, Dr. Germ G. Why so negative? Well, here's the deal. I didn't really like the way Harris or Kamala was forced on us. It felt forced. I mean, when she ran back in 2019 and 2020, I was excited. I thought, wow, man. I mean, I followed Kamala Harris, when she was in San Francisco and then she got elected to the Senate. I thought, man, she's pretty cool. And yeah, she's kind of attractive, nice to look at. But that's besides the point. She is, a graduate of HBCU here in the Washington, D.C. area. But most importantly, she does represent a new generation of political leadership and a new slice of the culture, the future, a diverse future in America, which is wonderful. And I even enjoyed her little jab at Joe Biden in one of the first presidential debates back in, I think it was late 2019, I think it was late 2019, where she said that she was one of the little girls who was part of the busing program, and essentially basically called Biden more or less a racist to his face. I mean, hey, that's what it sounded like. Maybe that's not what she intended, but that's the way it came across. Anyway, it was a moment. It was a moment that I think is indicative of the times that we're in. I mean, I can see it now. The look on Biden's face, he was just stunned, like, wow. She went there. But something happened. I have no idea what happened. But for whatever reason, Ms. Harris decided that she was not going to continue her campaign before the first votes were counted. Before the Iowa caucus in 2020, Ms. Harris had already suspended her campaign. What? She was already done. Now, some would say, well, this was the plan all along. Suspend the campaign because Biden said, hey, I have to get that person on my team. I need that woman on my team. Maybe that's what's happened. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But I just wasn't feeling it, And I wasn't feeling, Biden's telegraphing of tokenism. He's going to do this with this kind of person, that kind of person. It just felt, I don't know. It felt less than charitable. Let's put it that way. Hey, but that was the best we had going. And I think Biden pretty much played that card. Like, hey, it's either me or that orange guy. Okay, fine. But I think this time around, I don't know. The whole situation just reeks. Biden knew he probably should have stepped aside, but he didn't. He held on for as long as he could and until he was forced out. And then we had this weird period where the Democratic Party just didn't know what to do. And then suddenly, out of the depths of consternation comes this new hope, the vibes, the queen of vibes. Kamala Harris is here to save the day. And they're sending out word to all of the followers. The hive is spreading, and everyone now will catch the vibe and believe and be jubilant, joyful. Because the Democratic Party had chosen their new messiah, Kamala Harris. Great. Yeah, I don't know. I wanted to get behind it, man. I don't know. I could not shake the feeling that I was being duped. I still can't. It's just, I don't know. When I think about it, it just brings me to a sunken place. It's like, it's just this place of hopelessness. It's like, this is it. Is this all there is? Really? You're telling me that I have to choose between some lady that abandoned her campaign before a vote was cast, then ran to the dude that won, who was his VP, and basically was a punching bag for an issue that no one really wants to solve, and that's the border. And then the dude that she worked for sat there until he all but had a seizure. And then was calmly and maybe coldly forced to step aside. And now she's here. She's our one. She's the one, right? I don't know. I mean, look at the swing states. You know, the quote unquote blue wall. States like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Those Senate races are so tight. How tight, you ask? Well, the Democratic senators that are incumbents are trying to keep their seats. Have you checked out some of their ads? Oh, they're on everywhere because everybody cares about the swing states. Yo, these people are campaigning as if they're capable of collaborating with Trump. What does that say? That says they're not so sure about Kamala. And I don't know if it's necessarily because they don't think she can win. They know their folks, and they know that their folks are not so sure about Kamala. And so they're trying to, just cover themselves because they don't know. And it's understandable. I mean, it is a very tight race. I mean, if Kamala had campaigned and, she had the opportunity to campaign as early as January, and she won the hearts of the people, got the primaries in, and had time to really make the case against Trump, it'd be a different story, but that's not where we are. That's not our story. Our story is one of confusion and manipulation and consternation. I mean, it's like there are two great unknowns here. There is the unknown of, in terms of the depths of darkness that Trump may take us through. And then there is this other slippery unknown of a Kamala presidency. The former prosecutor is now commander-in-chief. Imagine that. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. And I think that's okay. And no, President Obama, I'm not a misogynist. I don't hate women. I'm not afraid to be led by a woman. On the contrary, I have voted for female candidates many times. If Kamala were on the ballot in 2020, I might have voted for her too. No one told her to duck and run, but that's what she chose to do. She did what was best for her, and that's fine. Well, hey, now people are thinking they have to do what's best for them. And it may be to hold their noses and vote for Kamala. It might be, but you know what? It doesn't have to be President Obama. It doesn't have to be. And that's okay. We don't hate women. I say we because I am a black man. And I don't hate women. And I'm not afraid to be led by a woman. No, not at all. I think the concerns that I or others may raise are reasonable. I think the way that this all went down is weird, man. It's weird. And the fact that you are pressing President Obama, that you're pressing and trying to make this case that those that question are somehow, we have a problem with women leadership, black women. Come on, man. Yo, it's not like that. I think this is just a sense that we are heading into a great unknown. Because obviously there is the darkness of Trump, but then there is this other cloudy situation where you're like, how did this happen? How did this person just end up being the nominee like that? And not only that, but why are these people so overly excited for her? It can't be just because we don't want Trump. I mean, what? No, I think this skepticism is not only healthy, it is highly necessary. But in my opinion, I don't think it's there. I think people have just basically surrendered to this what I say is a dark fate. In either case, we are screwed either way. So that's why I think this election is a lose-lose situation. Anyway, hey, I appreciate you listening. Thank you for subscribing to my channel on YouTube. I'd love to hear from you, whether you're a Trumper or a Kamala person, or maybe you like Jill Stein or Cornel West. Maybe you like Kanye West. Eep. Uh-oh. Well, I don't think Kanye's running for president anytime soon. But, you might have a different candidate you want to write in. I don't know. Man, listen. If there ever was a write-in election, this is it. Because both of these candidates are goofy. And you don't have to vote for either one of them. Believe me. I'm not telling you to. You can vote for who you want. And it's fine with me, because either way, we are catching it. We are catching it one way or the other. So just enjoy yourselves wherever you are listening to this podcast episode. Have a drink for me. Maybe have two. And do it in the good spirit of brotherly love. Because it may be that brotherly love of Philadelphia that may decide the fate of the world. Maybe the fate of the universe. I don't know. Anyway, that's enough for me. Thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm out.
This is the Cool Meanderings podcast with Dr. Germ G.